Hey guys, Andy here. So I have with me at the moment two of what I would call budget Chinese import phones. So obviously I figured I'll put them head to head. On the left is the Redmi 5 Plus with a Snapdragon 625 chipset. The CPU is a 2x 2.35 GHz Cryo and a 2x 1.9 GHz Cryo. The GPU is Adreno 506 and it has 4 GB of RAM. On the right, we have the Elephone S8. Now, it's got a different type of, or different brand of chipset, so it's the MediaTek Helio X25. It's actually got a Deca core, so there's 2x 2.5 GHz Cortex A72, 4x 2.0 GHz Cortex A53, and 4x 1.4 GHz Cortex A53. The GPU is the ARM Mali T880 MP4, and it also has 4 gigs of RAM. So kind of hard to know which of those then has the more power because of the different chipsets. But obviously that's what my testing is for, really. So we will kick things off with the fingerprint sensor test. The fingerprint sensor on the Redmi 5 Plus obviously being on the back, and the Elephone S8 fingerprint sensor being on the front. But we should be able to test them, and there we go. We see, to me, that was a reasonably clear win for the Redmi 5 Plus. The Redmi, I would say, has got reasonably quick fingerprint sensor. The S8, I did wonder, even when I tested it without it being side to side, it seemed a little bit slow to me. Not that it's a problem, it's generally been very reliable. Both of them have been very reliable, and I don't get many fails, but the Redmi 5 Plus, the easy winner there. So we've already moved on to the Angry Birds 2 opening test, and it looks like the Elephone S8 is coming through in the first round. So definitely opened before the Redmi 5 Plus, and I'm going to close them both down. I'm going to close all background apps, and this is actually me running it a second time, and I can tell you, as you can see, the Elephone S8 won the second time as well. So a fairly conclusive win from the Elephone S8 there. So we're going to move on to the actual benchmark test. I'm still using Geekbench 3 just because it's what I've used all the time, so for continuity's sake and comparison's sake. And we see that the Redmi finished first. Now interestingly, the Redmi has a lower single core but a higher multi-core. So I guess you can take from that what you will. I'm going to give that to the Redmi 5 Plus. There are a couple of tests where you could argue it could go the other way, but this is what I'm going to, you can take from it as you wish. Now here's the next one that's a bit of a interesting one. So we're doing the GPS test, we're outdoors. I got both of them to have a lock. I've reset the GPS state and we've gone back in. Now you'll see the S8 locks on first and the Redmi is only just behind it, but interestingly the Redmi sees more satellites, tracks more satellites, and becomes more accurate, almost to the point of sort of twice as accurate, I suppose you could say. You see the 8 meters on the Elephone S8 and the 5 on the Redmi 5 Plus. But I will give that to the Elephone. It did connect first, or get a location first, which is what it's all about.
Tell me where to go, tell me what to do. I'll be right there for you. Tell me what to say, no matter if it's true. I'll say it all for you. Tell me where to go, tell me what to do. I'll be right there for you. Tell me what to say, no matter if it's true. I'll say it all for you, for you, for you, for you, for you.
I used to be the type of kid that would always think the sky is falling. I used to be the type of kid that would always think the sky is falling. Why am I so differently wired? Am I a Martian? What kind of twisted experiment am I so differently wired? Am I a Martian? It's on a 10 speed, which I've acquired parts that I find in the garbage. A frame can put tires on it, headphones. A frame can put tires on it, headphones on straight ahead. Kids try and start this.
I would say, interestingly, the S8 is probably slightly louder, but the Redmi 5 sounds better. Let's move on to spoken voice.
Essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance. It also overturned a lot. Essentially gave organizations like GCHQ and the NSA a free rein to go do mass surveillance. It also overturned a lot of the rules and laws, and now we're in the situation where people are clamoring for the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitch, and where people are clamoring for the Googles and the Facebooks and the
So it's another test where it could go either way. I am going to give it to the Redmi. I do think it's a slightly better speaker. There's maybe slightly more volume from the Elephone though. We're going to move on to the screen test. So I turn off the auto brightness on them both and crank the brightness all the way up to full. And I'm switching over to the totally white screen, and I will get out my light meter to take measurements from both devices. So you can see the Redmi up in the sort of generally up in the high 500s, and we see the Elephone S8 down in the mid 300s. Not great. But then I realised when I turn on adaptive brightness, which I've done now, actually the Elephone was brighter, which is odd. I don't think I've seen it in a phone before. Adaptive is supposed to be the one where it just, I thought turning off the auto. I mean, it's still not as bright as the Redmi 5 Plus, so it doesn't particularly change the result. The screen goes to the Redmi. We move on now to the browser test, or more specifically the Chrome browser test. So I start off by clearing both of the data. I'm actually going to use my own website for the speed test this time. So we're going to androidandy.uk. The Redmi comes up just a bit quicker on that occasion. Both seem reasonably slick. No particular issues with kind of the scrolling or the browser usage. Nice and responsive. So we'll move on to the second website, which will be the BBC website. Now this was a little bit weird. The Elephone loads up nice and quick, and I'm actually going to have to edit this out because it's like the Xiaomi just kind of froze up, like it choked or something. It was kind of weird. I typed it in and it loaded almost instantly. Very strange. But then we'll move on to the final website, where it's kind of 1-1 at the moment. And I think, as you can see, the Elephone is coming through first. Although it's odd, because then it's almost like the Redmi starts a bit of a comeback, but at the same time the Elephone is actually loading video in there, I think. So I don't know if the Xiaomi is actually loading video, because it doesn't play the video. But I think we do. I mean, it was very tight. You could kind of go either way on the browser test. I'm going to give it to the S8, but I mean, you could almost argue it could have been a tie. So there are a few of the tests there that you could argue, you can take them one way or the other. But the way I've gone, the Redmi 4 and the S8 III. So quite a close test. And like I said, a lot of the tests you could go one way or the other. So the Redmi being around about 130, 140, and the Elephone S8 around 170. They're both a similar price bracket. The Elephone's slightly more. I think both of them you're getting quite a good phone. The cameras obviously I haven't touched on in this test. I will be editing another video hopefully in the next few days testing both of the cameras against each other. And I think sort of the main thing to take from this video is that actually you can get a lot of phone for under £200. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, if you disagree with some of my test results. I'm just kind of giving you the information really. You can do with it as you wish. So if you decide the S8 is the winner, I think that's fine. There's an argument that can be made for that. So do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But for now, my name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.